Hey everybody, it's Global Politics with Jim Martin. I'm going to weigh in now on the Israeli-Iranian and now U.S. conflict. I'm going to tackle the issue of why this is happening now. I'm going to talk about the implications of these strikes in a tactical, regional, and strategic sense of things. Why did this happen now? From an Israeli perspective, publicly, they believed that Iran was on the verge of developing a nuclear weapon. Whether that's accurate is somewhat suspect. We've heard about weapons of mass destruction before, so that said, no one believes that Iran did not have a nuclear weapons program of some sort for some purpose. What do I mean by that? You could be playing at developing a nuclear weapon by refining the uranium and doing all the things to create a bargaining position, much as they did prior to the large-scale nuclear agreement that the Obama administration entered into way back in 2015. Why now, from an Israeli perspective, also needs to consider the fact that Israel feels that they have the upper hand in the region. They've pretty much decimated Hezbollah as a fighting force on its northern border, which is a proxy of Iran. Syria has fallen, removing yet another base of operations for Hezbollah. Hamas has been brutally and in many cases horrifically crushed, as well as the people of Gaza. The Houthis have also been smashed by the United States and to some extent Israel. So Iran is really on the back foot. Furthermore, it's very clear that the Israelis had an extensive intelligence operation aimed at Iran for quite some time. Hezbollah was usually advised by senior Revolutionary Guard figures from Iran, and they've been killed, assassinated in different spots. Hamas, the second in command in Hamas, was assassinated in the supreme leader's compound using a bomb that was attached to his bed while he was sleeping there. And numerous other assassinations have occurred over the last few years, targeting Iranian and other figures that are associated with their proxies. Israel probably looked at this as a moment to strike and believed that they could get U.S. support for this sort of broad-ranging campaign that sets back its adversary, Iran, considerably in many of its aspirations in the region. I forgot to mention that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is deeply unpopular with broad swaths of the Israeli public. In fact, it's likely that in the next election, he will lose. And if he does lose the prime ministerial spot, it is likely that he will be tried and put in jail for corruption and other crimes. This may create incentive structures for Netanyahu and the conservative forces in his government to, A, prolong the war in Gaza and to have engaged in this major escalatory conflict with Iran, especially given Iran's weakened defense posture, a kind of rally around the flag sort of effect, while simultaneously buying more time for him to stay in power. From a U.S. perspective, we've had an incredibly difficult, frayed, and often bloody relationship with the Iranian government since 1979, since the initial hostage crisis and onward. Iran has asymmetrically used terrorism and intelligence and guerrilla forces to kill Americans regionally and around the world for decades. Finally, given Israeli air supremacy, it seems like a relatively risk-free tactical operation to get involved with the conflict at this time. We've heard that this is a one and done thing. We're not going to be involved anymore. I sincerely doubt that. What are the implications of all this? And there are several, and some of them are relatively small scale. Some of them are tactical to regional to strategic in nature. and others are really big picture. So I'm going to start with the moral aspect of this. This increases the suffering of the Iranian people. And having studied Iran and interviewed Iranian expats, the Iranian people should definitely be separated from the regime. The government of Iran is a clerical dictatorship. They're a brutal regime. They're torturers. They oppress their people. They've pursued goals which are not in alignment with bettering the lives of their people. The people of Iran and the people of that region, including Israel, are the ones who are suffering in this situation. Hey folks, Global Politics with Jim Martin. If you could take a minute and just subscribe to the channel, it would be a big help. Only about 10% of the folks who watch my videos are subscribed. And as I continue to grow things and provide the kinds of analyses that you've come to enjoy, it's really helpful if we can get those subscriptions up. Helps me out a lot. If you could do that, just take a second. I'd really appreciate it. Thanks. Second, this is a disparate point, but one that's still important. I had some thought that when the Trump administration started these nuclear negotiations with Iran, and when Israel first struck and Marco Rubio made the statement saying that we were not involved in any way in this and it was a unilateral thing, I had hope that we could put some distance between our foreign policy and that of Israel, giving it some remove, supporting Israel, yet taking a step back from that kind of active involvement may have given us leverage to produce wider and more sustainable, peace-oriented approaches and negotiations with not only Iran, but other players in the region. However, it seems that our foreign policy and that of Israel will continue to be welded together. 3, our European allies in the UN were entirely shut out of this entire process. This has served to, in particular, further emasculate the United Nations. In some ways, it has taken some precipitous blows over the last 6 months from the Trump administration. It was tottering at any rate, but if you don't really pay attention to the strictures and rules and functions of the United Nations and you don't care about them, and you are the most powerful nation on earth, that's saying something. It's unlikely that the Trump administration will suddenly choose to engage with the UN. You might recall that the Trump administration kicked Mike Waltz up to the UN ambassador's position. I've not seen any kind of discussion from him out of this at all. So it's unlikely that the UN is going to play any meaningful role in international affairs, particularly when it involves the United States and its actions. At least for the rest of the Trump administration. The fourth point I would like to make is, to any country considering a unilateral attack, this in many ways gives permission for that to happen. Israel has done it, has not faced any meaningful consequences. The United States then entered, also striking Iran first without direct provocation. It's something to consider, because when you think about Russia's arguments about invading Ukraine, what is the difference here? We're not invading, we're not sending troops in, but we are striking at the heart of the Iranian regime, most expensive assets. Israel is going after its leadership. Regime change has been talked about by both Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu. Consider China and Taiwan. Consider Venezuela and Guyana. These are all conflicts which have been percolating around the margins for some time. India, Pakistan, we've already seen an exchange there. Is this the new way that things are going to be spilling out over the coming years? Economic consequences are possible if this continues. About 30% of the world's oil comes through the Straits of Hormuz. A lot of that is destined for China and India. However, that affects markets. If they were to interrupt that flow in some way, or if Israel was to start to strike their oil fields and natural gas fields. These kinds of things matter. You see those prices rise. It would create at least a global recession. It's also possible that that does not happen, but the longer it goes, the more potential there is for that to occur. And given the advancements in warfare and technology, it is highly unlikely that we see something like what happened in the 80s, where the United States flags tankers and we're in there. We're already involved. So probably the longer this goes, the more risk of some serious economic fallout from this. This attack on Iran's nuclear facilities and nuclear weapons facilities increases the likelihood of nuclear proliferation. It doesn't decrease it. How is that? Well, what would stop somebody from doing what just happened? Israel attacking, the United States attacking, or someone else? What would stop China from attacking Taiwan? If you have the biggest stick that exists on the planet, it's a consideration. There are many, many scenarios across the world. I've talked about this before, where technologically capable nations are probably considering whether or not to transition their peaceful nuclear programs, many of which have existed for decades, into a weapons program, which many of them could do in very short order without really any of the bother that has happened with Iran in this situation. If they got nuclear weapons first, that just increases the risk of something tipping at some point in the future. It's also worth considering that if the widespread and credible bomb damage assessments are accurate, the Iranian nuclear weapons program may not have suffered the complete crushing blow that was presumed. That means that they could reconstitute this program in fair order. Now, whether or not this clearly had to set them back to some extent, but setting something back and destroying it are two entirely different things. And it would seem likely that given what just happened, they have an even stronger incentive to pursue nuclear weapons. 7, if the Iranian regime does capitulate to U.S.-Israeli demands, it will collapse. If it does, you're going to almost certainly have a widespread civil war in Iran. There are various separatist groups, there are various ethnic groups that would be likely to pick up arms, which are just laying around in the event of a regime collapse, and start fighting it out for supremacy over the country. If we break it, if the Israelis break it, we're not going to go in with boots on the ground. I can virtually guarantee you that. Who's going to fix it? Who's going to step in to stabilize it? I doubt it's us. Is it going to be Turkey? Is it going to be Saudi Arabia? Probably not. Is it going to be Pakistan? Who stands to gain from this? And if Iran remains in a chaotic state, what about the nuclear material that remains there? What about the nuclear scientists? What happens to them? These are all questions that, as we play this out, need sober thought and analysis. Finally, in the very big picture, this is not going to be World War III. As I noted, we're not going to invade Iran with troops. Iran has a population of about 100 million people. That's not Afghanistan. That's not Iraq. That's not Vietnam in the 60s. It's not possible for us to do that. That said, what in the big picture all of this does is further degrades international alliances like NATO and institutions like the UN. This makes the world of which the US and us as the people of this country are a part of more dangerous than it has been in many, many decades. Might makes right is becoming the modus operandi, particularly of the Trump administration, but we see that across the world. And this is dangerous stuff. As noted, I've talked about pre-World War I alliances and situations before, and it really feels like we're wandering into that territory. I look forward to speaking to you again soon. Don't forget to subscribe, and if you got a comment, please leave it. I don't know everything, and I certainly love to learn from your perspectives, and I look forward to talking to you all again soon.